Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it, We Cannot Help Anybody. Notice in the title that I put the space between any and body, because what we're reminded here is the fact that we are. This idea that I can help another, it just keep supporting the belief that I'm a separate entity. Does that mean that we cannot help people or something? No, this is not what we're talking about. But let me tell you how this video was inspired, and then we'll elaborate a bit on that. It was inspired by a question somebody asked me because he was dealing with, or his wife is dealing with very heavy challenges. There's no need to talk about it. It's just the fact that she's going through a very rough experience. And he's very concerned, he's very worried, he wants to do something about it, doesn't know how to help. And then I'm going to share with you what I wrote to him, and then we'll talk a bit on this. And I said, the only way you can help her is when you maintain peace and sanity in your mind. In other words, you have to be the mirror that reminds of her essence so that the world of appearances is not a distraction. Therefore, the work is always for you. This is the scenario life is presenting to you so that you can become aware of who you essentially are. As fear is eradicated from you, you become the light that can illuminate the minds of others, in this case, your wives. If, on the other hand, you keep your attention on her situation, you are both in the same dark tunnel and you're unable to be of support. One of you has to turn on the light so that both of you can get out. Use this experience to delve deeper into your being, and you will see how life takes care of the details. But be careful. When I say that life takes care of the details, I am not talking about your expectations. I am talking about knowing that no matter what happens, there is an order in everything, so you both, or at least so you know, that life's will is done. And when life's will is done, the consequence is always peace, true happiness, regardless of what appears to be happening in the world of appearances. Therefore, rest in the peace of this moment, not believing every thought that arises, every thought that says things are not going as they should, and trust that love is orchestrating everything for the benefit of true liberation. Not for the benefit of the individuals, but for the benefit of true liberation. In other words, I definitely understand that when we're dealing with a loved one or someone that there's an emotional, let's say, strong affinity there, this is not easy, not an easy pill to swallow. But in reality, what we're pointing to here is that you have to remember who you are. Not you as a person, but I don't know what language to use. When you know who you are, then you cannot help but to know what everyone is as well. We're all part of the same essence. We all have the same, call it power, divinity, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that reminds us that we are free. That is why the example that I like to use is, if you're in a movie theater and you see that in the screen, in the movie, the actor is doing something to another actor that you seem to have some sort of an affinity, does it make any sense at all for you to scream to the movie screen trying to tell the other actor what to do or not to do? It makes no sense whatsoever. You see, the only thing that would be sane would be so you recognize this is a movie, it's a script, it already happened, and nobody's gonna get hurt. It's just basically part of the play. You know that it's a movie, and you don't engage with it. You see? Well, in this play called life, when you know who you are, you see, now you're not distracted by the play as it unfolds, and then you are in a much better position to be of help, because your quote-unquote help, which was coming from ego, was trying to save the other, but now your real help comes from your essence, which is to remind the other, you see, to remind that other person the nature of what they are, and now the experience doesn't have an effect on them. You see, this is why this video points to the freedom in which you rest, not in the freedom or liberation or awakening that you think is going to happen in the future, because that would be assuming that there's an individual that lives in time and space, and that in the future is going to have some kind of an experience overlooking the fact that you simply are. These videos are always pointing to the fact that you are. So in the world of appearances, there's going to be all kinds of scenarios which only have one purpose: to distract. And we're just simply pointing back here, you see, to the essence of what you are. That's why if you look at teachings like A Course in Miracles says, you know, the atonement is for oneself. It's not for anybody else. Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, you cannot help anyone unless you are beyond the help or the need of help yourself. You see? So here we're not trying to become better helpers. We're just recognizing the fact that we are. When that recognition is established, then you will see how life unfolding through you will do and say if something needs to be done or something needs to be said, but it's not accompanied with a conceptual mind. You see, it's simply observing life happening. And now in this sense, if someone is filled with fear, you can help them not with words necessarily, but by demonstrating through your own example that quote-unquote person has the same capacity to choose the thought system that you are choosing. Now, you know, in these videos we said that there's no doer, so in the end you were not even going to choose. The choice will happen through you. However, within this context, where it appears as if we have the freedom of choosing whether identify with fear or not believing it, within that context you can demonstrate to others that they also have the same wisdom within when you share them through your example. You see, that's why I believe Ramana Maharshi, most of the time he didn't speak a word, and people will just, in his silence, there was a resonance, and that resonance was enough. And in some cases he may need to use words, because depending on the situation and where the person seems to be, well, he needs to use words. But for the most part, there's a resonance that is beyond, that has nothing to do with words. I may be saying words right now, and you can be resting in that space and you can see the resonance, because in reality the words are not coming from me. They're coming from the very same source that supposedly projects this whole thing. I say supposedly because this have never even happened, but it seems as if it have happened. So that same source, okay, that same source that is expressing through me, which is expressing through you, it may seem to be using this instrument called me to say something to itself in which it appears as if that you is receiving it. But the resonance is not in the mind. The resonance is deeper than that, because it's the fact that we are. We're pointing to the fact that we are. Even though the mind may throw different scenarios, in the end we're pointing to the fact that we are. Right now, if you don't identify with the content of the mind, if you don't believe any thoughts, they'll be there, that's fine. That's part of the distraction. They're there to try to sustain or support quote unquote the belief that I'm this seeming individual and is to try to protect this seeming individual. But when you don't identify with the content of the mind, when you don't believe your thoughts, notice that there's a space that no one and nothing can touch. And that is where these videos are pointing to. You see, that's why we're not addressing specifics. It's irrelevant, the specifics. To some people, maybe in this case, his situation with his wife. To some others, maybe a health issue. To some others, maybe a financial issue. To some others, maybe a government issue. Some are maybe a society issue. But these are just different distractions that is trying to bring the attention outward, and we're bringing it back to presence, which is what I am, where the conceptual mind is not an interruption. When you're resting in that space, because this is what you are, then you are life, and see how life is unfolding through you. And notice that in places when something needs to be done, you'll see naturally move to do something. It's not coming from fear, it's not coming from judgment, it's just basically the natural expression, the organic expression of the self expressing through this seeming you. And the right words will be said for the situation. The right actions will be taken for the situation. But if you're distracted with the world of appearances, then even though you think you're actually helping, you're just simply being distracted, and that distraction doesn't help others. You just keep feeding the same distractions that they seem to be a part of. That's why some people want to make changes in the world, which is wonderful, that's fine, but the problem is that if they believe in the world, they already got caught up in the illusion. You see? Does that mean that you will not do things that would help the world? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you know who you are, believe that whatever you do would be, if anything, within the context of this seeming experience, will be far much beneficial and helpful than the actions that are taking, believing the world of appearances, meaning reinforcing the belief in the illusion, reinforcing the belief in separation, which is the cause of all fear, by the way. And consequently, all you're going to find yourself is fighting within yourself. You're going to be in a fight with yourself, because everything that you seem to be out there is within, because you and everything are one and the same. And I don't mean within like a body or person that has something within. No. It's just the nature of, the dynamic of a language, you see. But in reality, what we're pointing to is that we are. And right now, I don't know how your journey will unfold. I don't know how my life is unfolding. I know how it's unfolding because it's happening right now, but I don't know anything about future or past. All I know is that this is it. Right now, you cannot negate the fact that you are, because this is the direct experience of beingness. This is beingness, okay? If that beingness is not overshadowed with the thinking mind, then you are resting in the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that is all that is matters, because that is the example that you become the bringer of the light, so to speak, when there's seeming darkness, okay? So now that you are resting in what you are, because you have used all the different experiences to keep reminding you of the nature of your beingness, within the world of appearances, you are more likely to be an example so that others can supposedly benefit from it. I say supposedly because there are no others. That's what I say, you cannot help anybody. But within this context of this dream, so to speak, everything is used for the benefit of knowing what I am. You see? And as you're and the freedom that you are can have a huge effect within the world of appearances into any others. Jesus was a free man. Actually was a free being. Buddha was a free being. And all this, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, and all these people are still to this day, even though some of them were gone thousands of years ago, some may not that long ago, but still to this day they still have an impact. They seem to have an impact, you see. Well, we're pointing to the fact that you are, and in that sense you keep using your present moment experience just to notice how the mind is oscillating between beingness, which is what you are, that'll never change, and boom, engaging itself again with a thought. And when you see that it's just basically the content of the mind, the distraction, you go back again and release. And that's what we're doing. It seems as it looks like a practice, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm trying to go back to where I am. No, you're not trying to go back to where you are. You are what you are. You're noticing how, because of habit or conditioning, there's a tendency to hang on to what you're not, which is a thought. And now when you notice that, you release. The release is not bringing you back to where you are, because you are always. The release is simply symbolic of saying, I am no longer hanging on to what was trying to be a distraction. In this case would be a thought, okay, an interpretation. The more this beingness, which is what you are, it settles more and more, and the more you see that everything is a thought and means absolutely nothing, it's kind of automatic when you see that the mind wants to engage, and boop, immediately you go back, because now you want this more than anything else. But if you still want the content of the mind, well, of course it appears that you're going to have to be wrestling all the time between one thought and another one, and what I want, what I don't want, and I'm caught up in the world of appearances, and I'm trying to control things, and I'm trying to change things and fix things. And again, you're running in circles. It's like it's kind of like a trapeze artist. Instead of just landing on the floor, meaning on the net, or being on the floor, put it this way, he's just swinging from one trapeze to another one. You see? Well, these videos are not for you to keep hanging from one trapeze to another one, giving you more content and more information and more concepts. No, we just let go of the bar. That's it. Letting go of the bar would lead to the peace that surpasses all understanding. And once again, from that space, you are in a much better position to tell others, quote unquote, let go of the bar. Otherwise, you're hanging on from your bar, the other one is hanging on from their bar, and then you're trying to help each other, when actually there's a wisdom within both that is saying, let go of the bar. You're here, be in this space right now. There's a net underneath. Don't worry, let go of the bar. You see? So, resting in the net requires no effort. Hanging on to the bar requires a lot of effort. So the only way that I can, quote unquote, help others is to remind myself that I am not a body, and that's why I don't have to help anybody. I'm just remembering that there is no body. All that there is what is. And that's the inspiration that came through this instrument. I hope it served, and as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.